presentation of residential market in Hyderabad, a session by Knight Frank. So I would request Mr. Samson Author, Branch Director, onto the stage from Knight Frank, India.
And I represent the consulting firm of Knight Frank, and here to present you a few details on what happened in this year, which has been observed by all of us as an unprecedented year. I'll straight away start, take you through about 5 minutes about how the economy went, and thereafter take you through what is in store for Telangana, so that we have a glimpse of how the markets actually performed. So the GDP growth was negative. However, there's a lot of economic indicators that showed marked improvement in Q3, and I think that's the story that's true of not just our region but also Asia Pacific. A lot of green shoots recovery. Here's what is growing up. There's railway freight and IIP. There's a sharp upward trajectory. There is a passenger vehicle sales growth of about 35% increase. There's a two-wheeler sales growth. There is manufacturing PMI, which was highest in about 8 years. And the weekly unemployment rate has reduced as well. Just quickly jumping into the real estate sector, there are two main sectors that we always observe. There is office sector and there is housing. And this is how office happened across India. The completions, there was an overall improvement as the economy looked better in Q3. As you would notice, Q1 was continuing on the back of a very strong 2019. However, after March end, the scenario completely changed. So if you compare the previous quarters of last year to the quarters of this year, a big difference. However, if you notice, we have really climbed up by the last quarter in the graph, which is Q3 2020. We're now almost at about 30% of pre-COVID level as far as the quarterly average goes. This is how the occupiers have moved on transactions, and this is their decision making as we observe. Every quarter, if you notice the range, it has gone up by about 80% from the previous quarter, and so we are now at about 0.44, which is about 4.7 million square feet is what we see, we notice now. This is how Hyderabad stands in comparison to about 8 cities that we compare. And the quarter-on-quarter average difference is pretty significantly positive compared to how it was in April. So in April, while we were still in the thick of the lockdown, it would have been very difficult to predict the facts and figures like this. It goes on to say that many recovered pretty strongly, and especially office sector as an anchor, when it moves, it definitely has a cascading effect on housing. Some of the key markets which have showed improvement has been, obviously Hyderabad may look low, but we were coming off a very strong base in 2019. This is how the rents are holding up. The good news is that Bangalore and Hyderabad are the most exciting markets in the country, and while the numbers may look low, but a 4% and 2% of price rise is a very, very healthy sign. We move to what is the focus of the day, and in this event, as we focus on housing, this is a quick outlook of what's happening on the residential front. There's a sharp rebound despite the lockdown lows, and I think that's the great story. So it's not just a sentiment anymore. The facts are proving that there is a positive growth from Q2, which was June onwards. There has been a big change, and we are looking at about a huge difference between Q2 to the Q3. So July, August, September, an extremely positive quarter. So we can expect that even the next quarter will be similar. So the launches have increased to about 56% of pre-COVID levels. Of course, there's a lot of serious home buyers, because of which we are seeing this momentum, which means that ready stock, when it moved, and that was the first preference, it clearly showed that the organic demand was in place. And I'm happy to share that this is not just for a few cities, it's across cities. Now the home buyers are responding to both the stimulus that the government has shared in a few states, which is Maharashtra as an example, where there has been a stamp duty 300 basis point cut. We're also looking at these cities, how they have performed in the housing sector post the lockdown. And clearly, while Kolkata is looking very high, it's also because of the base at which it has come up. But if you look at Hyderabad, 37% is still a consistent, healthy growth quarter on quarter, year on year that it has been offering. Most markets have recovered more than the lost ground since April. And that's the good news that when you look at Hyderabad, we are at about a 40% higher than where we were. The price growth, something that we always factor that is there a real growth. The facts are here to prove that the pricing in residential real estate continues to grow, and a 4% growth is perhaps the highest in the country as far as housing of Hyderabad goes. We would like to share with you what we as a firm did when we were in this lockdown. We resumed our office from May 11th, and happy to share that it gave us a first mover advantage to understand the pulse of the market and be able to service our customers. So this is something that we captured when we were trying to promote why Hyderabad, why work from Hyderabad, why work from home from Hyderabad, and anything else in Hyderabad. So WFH, which stands for work from home, was the 6th most trending hashtag in the world during lockdown. But then we have used it to say that work from Hyderabad is just rightly placed. One, because of the growth rate that we see higher than the country average. Of course, we all are aware of the firms that are here which are adding to the growth. We're talking about all the leading companies. But then why? These are the key enablers of Hyderabad. We're talking about conducive policies. We're talking about infrastructure impetus that is offered in this state for players. We're talking about affordable real estate cost. One of the most unique selling points of Hyderabad is that it continues to remain an affordable market for both housing and for office space. We are still below the dollar, and I think that's a great sign. Of course, we are a consumption market as well. It's clearly demonstrated by the presence of even e-commerce companies, simply because the end user is here. We are less of a speculative market and more of a consumption-driven market. It's needless to say, we are a fantastic talent pool available in the city. For all the growth story of IT, we really have it at all levels. These are the conducive government policies that we keep talking of, and what makes us say that Telangana, Hyderabad is the place is because of the several initiatives that have been taken in self-certification systems like TSI Pass and now even TSB Pass. At the same time, the industrial parks that have been set up and promoted. Of course, we have the highest number of SEZs, and we have consistently ranked high in the ease of doing business, and that is one primary reason why Hyderabad continues to be a favorite ground for investors and end users. These are the industrial clusters which Hyderabad is proud of. We're talking about airports and aerospace as a cluster, a very focused sector. We have the fantastic Aerotropolis at the airport. We also have the 4 aerospace parks in and around the GMR Aerotropolis. We're talking about the mid and medium category green sector parks under the MSME. We're also talking about the startup ecosystem, something very proud of. Our state, our city has. It's one of the largest startup hubs that the country can boast of. We're talking about the EV policy which was recently launched, and the state is all set to attract automobiles, especially in the electric vehicle, and the policy is very friendly. We're also talking about electronics, which has been a focus sector, and then pharmaceutical base. We perhaps are the base not only to the country but to the world at large, and the vaccine story that Hyderabad will come into fore will prove it once again. What's the infrastructure impetus that's so important? Across ways been blessed with superior infrastructure, and then the developments have followed. But what are these infrastructure? Well, grid policy that has been spoken of by the government right now is a step in the right direction, where it's no longer just a western corridor or just an eastern corridor, but the north and south as well. So growth and dispersion, and there are fantastic policies which are being talked about, and the more we get to know, the more we know that this government is interested in promoting all-rounder development. Transit-oriented developments, I'll just lets you have a look at it. These are the reasons why business becomes enabled when you have mass transport systems that can move people from one end to the other. It is so conducive for business on those reasons. We're now talking about public utility infrastructure, water and power. I think one of the most basic fundamental requirements of the state has been this. And I think over the last 6 years, that's something we all have been witness to, that power is not an issue. Water is an issue that has been addressed and is continuing to get addressed and taken it to the next level. So these are the infrastructure services that helps the housing index of any city. Finally, the real estate of the city. These are the parameters. We're talking about Hyderabad standing out right next to Bangalore as far as office segment goes. Feel free to ask me for these data. Happy to share that with you one-on-one. But as a glimpse, you can see that these are very healthy numbers from 2013. The kind of growth that we have seen over the last 6 years is much higher degree of growth than any other market. And soon we should be able to do better than even Bangalore if the race continues. What's interesting is the rentals have remained still steady. This is a promising residential market of Hyderabad, the weighted average rent. Even if you can't see the numbers, if you see the curve of the growth of the graph, it is upward moving, and that's the healthy sign of residential. We also have a very high quantum in the office sector. Upcoming asset classes, we all are aware what's happening. Amazon's presence now and growing in the data center space, as well as warehousing. We now have marquee developers, the leading developers in the country, world-renowned names are now in Hyderabad as well. So that's my presentation. If you need any more information, happy to share that. And thank you for your time. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Please subscribe Real Estate TV, like, share and comment.